Shopify helps businesses break sales records over the holidays with the world's best converting checkout. Let's hear that one more time. The world's best converting checkout. Shopify's legendary checkout makes it easier for customers to shop on your website, across social media, and everywhere in between. Now that's music to your ears. Any way you spin it, you can be a smash hit with Shopify. Start your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/records.
Percolate on a particular mix of odd and inspiring news headlines in Wendy's Coffee House. Newsmakers with a penchant for the unknown, unexplained, and unusual share their experiences with UFOs, ghost encounters, near-death experiences, and more for your own unique blend of Wendy's Coffee House Curious.
And the cool thing is this is really, really curious. We're going to go for a little joyride here and contemplate the universe from all sorts of perspectives. There'll be angels. There'll be near misses, as in almost off the planet misses, recoveries, miracles, divine intervention, little people. There's a whole lot more. Dr. House. Dr. Richard House. This is not the house you saw on television. This is a whole different universe house, and I'm telling you, there's a lot of universe in this. Hi, Dr. House.
Hello, Wendy. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so glad I had a chance. Now we're interviewing and talking about the book everybody can read, which is Between Now and When. We're going to talk about this, and it's How Death Made My Life Worth Living. True story, Richard House, MD. And then we're also going to talk about the manuscript that you have just kind of on the back burner, simmering and looking for a home. And I'm hoping it finds one because it is absolutely, there's a whole different world in that. Now, first, we're going to catch up. And this is the part where the miracles come in and all that. You kind of had a precursor, I think, knowing that your life may take a different direction on a different tangent. When you were a kid, about 7 years old, you had an experience that was pretty awesome.
Yes, that is right. Would you like me to talk about that just a little bit?
Just to fill everybody in, because not everybody gets these, okay?
That's the odd thing. When it happened to me, I had no idea that it was unusual, but I was exactly 7 years old and minding my own business growing up in Southern California, and was actually standing outside. And all of a sudden, I had this incredible surge of understanding or of identity that, in fact, I was all that there is and was somehow connected with everything. It was such an overwhelming and wonderful experience that it left me sort of not only astonished, but in my young mind, I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. But, when the experiences like this come and go, they don't last for a long time. And I think I was probably in that state for a few minutes. But when I woke out of that state, I needed to search for sort of a different identity for myself. And I came up with this very odd word that I think I put in the book. I called myself Icken from that point forward. And, I still will answer to that name.
But except when your mom, when you tried that with your mom.
Oh, she didn't like it. No. My real name at the time, they were calling me Dick.
Uh-huh.
And, so all of a sudden I'm calling myself Icken. And my mom just kind of said, "What's this Icken business? You are Dick." And that is it. And so I sort of resumed that identity too. So from that time forward, I sort of carried this dual sense of who I really was, just a kid growing up in Southern California, and also the magnificent splendor of everything that is.
Okay, so you had that precursor that there was maybe more going on here than just meets the eye. And then at 13, or sometime during your adolescence, a little voice interrupted all of that wonder, just to kind of give you another kick.
It did indeed. There were actually two little events. The first thing that happened was when I was about 12, walking home from school. And in those days, we actually walked.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I was walking home from school, and this glorious sense of who I was, this union with what I perceived as the divine, disappeared. It went away. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was just a shriveled up little kid. And it was the first time in my life that I experienced fear. And I carried that fear forward for many, many years afterwards. So that was the first thing that happened. I lost Dickon. And then the second thing that happened when I was around 13, I experienced this little message, I guess. It wasn't actually words, but it was this feeling and message that I knew was also divine. And it came into my head unbidden, and it said, "You will die at the age of 33. And, that was sort of an alarming thing for a young teenager to experience, but
Absolutely.
I had absolutely no doubt that such a thing was true.
Okay, and so with that, did you turn around and say, "Is this negotiable?"
God, I wish I had thought of that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it was a gut punch at that point. It's like, whoa. Okay.
It was a gut punch. It's like my heart raced a little bit, and I thought, what is this?
Yeah.
There was no reason for it, and I didn't have any particular connection to anything that was like that. I didn't have fear of dying, and I wasn't sick or anything like that, but I believed it. And so what I did is just kind of shut it off and into a little piece of my mind, and picked up my skateboard and just kept right on going.
Yeah. Okay, so then we fast forward to you wanted to be a doctor.
Actually, I wanted to be a dentist.
Well, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, okay, we'll go there first because, that was a derail moment.
Yeah, I was a good student, of course, and my father was a dentist. He's passed on, and my grandfather was a dentist, and I thought, well, that's what Richard needs to do also. And so I went to Butler, which is a fine school, but was fooling around a lot. I had grades that were good enough to get into dental school, and that is it. But in the garden one day, I had this little message, and this little message was very profound and very unexpected. It said, "You don't need to be a dentist; you need to be a doctor."
Oh boy.
And so this was almost as alarming as the other message, because my grades I had a 2.3 average in my sophomore year. Okay, that is not good enough to get into medical school.
Can I interrupt here? Because it was almost as bad as the other one. I'm thinking death, doctor, death. I would go with death is probably a little bit more severe than being a doctor, but okay.
I take your point there. Yeah, I give you that.
Yeah, okay, fine.
But then the second message did give me a sense that there was some sort of captain in my life that periodically would steer me in the right direction. And I think that part was quite valuable. But I wasn't quite ready to believe it. But being such a lousy student, I guess I sort of dared God to follow through on that. And, I quit the fraternity and started studying and all the things you might imagine. And I brought my grades up to 2.7, which is still not good enough for medical school. But I got into IU School of Medicine. And as soon as I got that letter in the mail, I said, "All right, sir, I believe you now."
You pulled a string or two for this. And we won't go into that. That's in the book. The Between Now and When, How Death Made My Life Worth Living. We're talking with Richard House, Dr. House, who this story it continues to get better. So you are swimming along. You've got the car, you've got the house, the wife, everything that says I'm a success. And I'm a flaming success, okay? So you have all of this going for you. And then?
But my best friend was a fellow named Johnny Walker.
I was going to say Jack Daniels, but okay, fine.
Actually, they were both friends of mine.
Okay.
I don't know which I like better.
Okay. All right, here's the danger zone, yes.
Yeah, and so what I was doing was drinking so heavily that it started impacting my health in a very big way. And although I won't go into all the morbid details, it was an incredibly difficult time, as everyone with addiction will affirm. And eventually it got to the point where I was in liver failure, basically.
Okay, but you get to the screaming yellows, because there was just that's a precursor. Yeah.
Yeah, the screaming yellows that was a chapter in the book, and it was so bad that I started losing my grip on reality, and I started seeing these malignant visions and monsters that were swimming in the air. And all I could think of was to get a drink and make it go away. Mm-hmm. And I had terrible nausea all the time. I never was able to drink without a hangover. You would think that would keep you sober, but it didn't. So the suffering was enormous. And eventually I got to the point where I couldn't work at all.
Yeah. So this point, though, did you ever think about the dying aspect, or did you just kind of say, well, okay, that's what they told me, this is obviously it? Or did that even enter into your mind?
Well, one day I was out on my deck, and I never really thought about it. But I had told my partner that I needed to take a month off, and he was very surprised because I was such a hard worker. And I'll have to admit, I was also an excellent surgeon. But I got to the point where I didn't think it was fair to patients to work any longer. So I was sitting out on my deck, and I, without my shirt on, I noticed a little red spot on my belly, mm-hmm. and this little red spot is what we call a spider hemangioma, and I had seen enough of those on the VA ward as an intern to know exactly what it meant. It meant that my liver was shot. And so my solution for that problem was to go ahead and put a T-shirt on.
There it went away. Okay, covered. Okay, well, exactly. All right. So So I guess that's why the other solution has to come.
Exactly. And so, I said, well, I guess I am dying. Who does the bell toll for? It tolls for me. So that's when I understood that I was dying. It did not really settle in for another few days until I started throwing up blood. And then I realized that, sure enough, that bell was ringing. And then it occurred to me, and it was so funny, it almost made me laugh. I said, God damn it, I'm 33.
Oh, bell. Okay. Yeah. So really, that's young. That's young. And at this point is when your checkout time is due.
Yes. Yeah. My warranties had all expired. And I was in the ICU, and I received excellent care, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
But I'd had 18 transfusions, and finally my doctor came in, and he said, well, Richard, he said, you have a bleeding esophageal varices, and there's no hope. Mm. He said, it's really silly for us to keep pumping the blood in when you just puke it right out. So he said, with your permission, we'll turn it off, and that's the end of the business, and say your goodbyes, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Make
your peace with the Lord. Yeah. So what happened then, they did all that, and they stopped the thing, and in a few days, I could feel myself sort of, I don't know what, I think about it periodically, but not often. But the feeling I had was a general sense of the pain of existence going away. And I started feeling for the first time in my life the sense of comfort, maybe since I had lost Icken. Yeah. And for those of you that have not died,
thank you.
I want to explain how wonderful the experience of death is. Once I understood that this was what was happening, it was like, bring it on, man. This is really good. It was a very blissful feeling. And as other people have eloquently described, I felt myself lifting above my body and could look down on it, all that. I did not see a white light, which irritates some people. But listen, it was my death. I mean,
They can have their own. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. If you want the white light, bring it on. But I didn't see a white light.
That might have been why you're still here.
It could well be.
Yeah.
I thought of that too. You're right.
It wasn't completely final.
Yeah, if I'd gotten that far over, I might not have been able to get back. But I was sort of swimming in this blissful sea, and then one of these messages came in once again. And this time the message was quite simply, you will heal and work for me. And I knew that this was a divine message. And if I could have, I would have stood up and saluted and said, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And then soon I drifted back to that sick old yellow body. And you know the rest of the story. Within a few days, I was out of the hospital and healed.
And see, that's where the guy who said, we're done pumping you full of blood, you're just going to have to make your peace and say goodbye, had to have gone, who the heck are you?
What he did say to me, he actually came out to the hospital entry with me as I was leaving. And he said, now listen, my friend, he said, I don't know what happened, mm-hmm. but he said, one drink and the game is over. And I said, no problem. I won't drink anymore.
Kind of. Were your fingers crossed?
Yeah. Well,
that negotiator that you are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we didn't negotiate that one, but by golly, it was an interesting experience.
Okay, so with this, this is basically where you have your marching orders. So you're back on a pass. I'm assuming that if you didn't fulfill this, then there might have been a relapse. But that's the amazing thing about this, the fact that you had the little warning when you were a kid of how really cool things were, and then it completely vanished and went to just that, like you said, that fear, and not really knowing what the fear was about, but what's missing? Something's missing. So when you had that reconnection, did it feel like everything had come back that Icken had been when you experienced it the first time around?
Eventually, but not right away. And that made the game a little more interesting because my wife, in the meantime, had fallen in love with someone else when it was pretty clear I was going to die.
Yeah.
And so that was definitely an issue.
Oh, boy.
And then, of course, trying to put together a life that has been rent asunder, to say the least, was difficult. And I was presented with many challenges that I needed to deal with consciously and soberly. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And it went well. But still, I was in this place of confusion. And then one night, in the middle of the night, I was, one afternoon, I was in my empty house now and sitting on a couch, the only piece of furniture in the house, and I was looking down on the floor. And all of a sudden, the floor tiles became sort of luminescent mm-hmm. in this incredible beauty, and they flashed out of the floor and into my consciousness. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Now, when that happened, I knew that I had been catapulted into some other either dimension, or that my mind had opened up to those, exactly what you were talking about, to what I had seen as a young kid.
See, that had to be, just there's no words when that happens, because it isn't a language thing. It's an essence. It's a formless. All of a sudden, you've merged, and trying to tell anybody about it is pointless. That's why we have the book.
Yeah. Believe me, I didn't tell anyone about it.
For that reason. Because it's so hard to explain, and people think you're nuts. They already thought I was nuts, But that began quite an interesting journey, and what happened was I would have these periods where I would enter this magical world. I called it the beautiful land, because while walking in it, and literally I could walk,
and do ordinary things while being in this sort of super state.
Richard, hang on. We're going to come back and let you describe that because that's too good to miss. We have to take a break. Okay, no, it's a good place to stop. Between now and when, how my death made my life worth living. Dr. House and his incredible story and the life shift that comes from being kind of, half in and half out, that near-death experience where you have a larger view of what's going on. But he also had marching orders. And this is where the marching orders come into play. This isn't just a speed bump. It's not just a few track hurdles. It's like a major life redirect. All right? So stick around. We'll have him describe that experience and those experiences, walking the in-between. You're listening to Wendy's Coffee House. KCMO Talk Radio. Going to take a quick break and come back with more with Dr. House, the good Dr. House, here on KCMO. Sometimes things happen, Wendy's Coffee House on KCMO Talk Radio, that they're just transcendent. And it's an explosion of reality that maybe you don't even know how to explain or have words for, but it's more real than real. And when you try to tell people that, it depends on who you're talking to. But a lot of people just say, okay, well, cool. And you're like, man, and you want to go back to it. You want to expand that moment and go back to it. And it's harder to get back into the day-to-day normal 9 to 5 when something like that happens. Okay, so I'm doing my very best to just set up and describe what's going on with my guest between now and when, how my death made my life worth living. Dr. Richard House. And you heard in the first break, some of these, or in the break, that he talked about being the state that he would get to now and then after seeing the luminescent tiles. What was that like?
Yeah, the actual state is a whole. Like you said, it's a higher reality. Of course, I didn't really see that at the time. It was more of an experience of the senses, mm-hmm. where I would be walking in this beautiful land where everything had a luminescent beauty, where the sounds were crisp, where the smells were entrancing. But probably one of the things that I enjoyed the most while walking in this new world was that there was no worry and there was no fear. And let me tell you, as a human being walking on this earth, that is a precious experience to have no fear and no worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these states, unfortunately, would only last for at most a few hours. There was a time where maybe a couple of days, but after that, the worry and fear would come back to some degree, but it was always minimal. But it was there. So I knew that in this different land that there were different mechanics, and that was proved many times over as I walked through this land.
Okay, we're going to skip around because I want to also get into the manuscript that I got to read that talks about some of these other states, the metaphysical elements of this, because you are introduced through doing long periods of meditation and basically shifting your focus. Once you got the marching orders to go, you basically tied up your loose ends and tried to work on some of the karmic issues. Overview, not that you knew you were doing that at the time. It was just kind of an instinct, an intuition that you tied up the loose ends, and then you went on a trip.
Yes. The same captain that seemed to be giving me hints about where to go became more directive, I guess. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to divest of all my stuff. I gave away all my stuff, all my money and cars and all that, and basically headed off on a world journey. Mm-hmm. And each step along the way, there was something new that I encountered. And my first stop was in Hawaii, in the island of Kauai. And as you say, I spent virtually all day and a lot of the night in a meditative state, which was much easier once I had entered into the subtle realm. Oh, and that's what we call that now. We call that the subtle realm. I didn't know any of that.
Okay, so there was an encounter you had while you were in that subtle realm. Bring that up, because before you just thought you were all by yourself, and then you found there was company.
Yes. the company took the form of sort of. Well, let me back up and ask what part of that you want.
Oh gosh. Okay. the form that looked like a person.
Okay. What happened was that I started meditating and hearing things and seeing things.
Yes.
Now, these were not the demons that I had seen before, but more angelic creatures. Mm-hmm. And I realized that in this new world, there was so much that I didn't understand. And I started experiencing sort of spontaneous insight into how things work on this earth. There really are angels, and there really is a system to the whole experience of being human on earth. There really is a God in many different forms. And there really was a captain who was leading me. And so as time went on, I had the message to travel to Los Angeles and to look at this fellow Mayor Baba, who had been sort of a sidebar in my life when I was attending AA. And as soon as I looked at his picture, I knew it was him that had been giving me all this guidance. And at once I started reading a lot of the books that were that he had written or other people had written about him, and it really helped me understand about all the things that had come to me spontaneously. It was very valuable.
And see, that's the part that is so fascinating, because out of the blue, this was completely, unplanned, spontaneous, and you're told you're going to serve me. Who do you think is that? What did that translate to?
Okay, the me part was sort of he, she, God, but the part of God that is involved with us on earth. I knew that clearly, mm-hmm. that my job is to be a human being with feet on the ground, to help people understand about our relationship, not only to God, but to each other. But, these are the same messages that many, many, many people have brought to Earth. But I realized that I was involved in a sort of a personal task that involved manipulating energy. And so those faculties were opened up in me as I traveled to India. And so I started becoming it's a little hard to say, mudras opened up. Mm-hmm. And insights opened up. And so I now could look at things and see how they needed to be reworked. And so that was what my mission really was. And in fact, it has not stopped.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You're an energy healer.
Yes.
And that's part of it. That's what's mind-boggling is the gifts just came, and I don't have a better word except for gift. We're going to stop. We have to take a break with Dr. House, Between Now and When, How My Death Made My Life Worth Living. Got to take a quick break. We're going to come back and ask about those gifts, and we do not have enough time to talk with you, but we're going to fit it all in. Stick around. Wendy's Coffee House. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I am so fascinated with everything that my guest was able to experience, because it's one-stop shopping. It gives you the full panorama of what it's like to be born, to have these experiences of miraculous contact, and then have it taken away and come back, and then realize there's more to this than just 9 to 5, and there's more to us that we can draw out and pull out, sometimes with just a little kick, or something yellow screaming at you saying, quit it. Stop ignoring your life. It's here. All right, so Dr. House had this experience, and he's talking about we were getting into the energy, how he sees it differently, and it's still with him. That's what I believe from reading the other manuscript he sent me. All these energies that he is now able to see are here, and not just for him, but for all of us. And if we expand our awareness, maybe through not as much trauma, hopefully, maybe meditation is just good enough, we can open to it. So that's what I wanted you to share, is that what is it like when you have these awarenesses and that energy that now comes through you is just a part of your life?
Okay, sure. after I got back from India and started traveling the United States, and I did two other world journeys. And so I started seeing sort of the metaphysical outline of the Earth itself. And as other people have alluded, I did not know this at the time, but there are these energy lines that go all over the Earth. And they are sort of like longitude and latitude markers. They create squares. There is subtle energy, there is mental energy, there is gross energy. Those are the three energies. The subtle is the horizontal, if you will, type, and the vertical is the mental energy, and right in between this little square is what's called a ley, L-E-Y.
Yeah.
After the ley lines, the ley is gross. So I started seeing this, and so I started realizing that each one of us has an energy system that is congruent and compatible with the ley lines that we are in. I had a terrible time traveling for a while because every time I go from one ley to another, I would have to adjust my energy. Now, it was quite difficult, and for years I could not digest food well as a result of all this energy that I was channeling. Now, channeling is not a word that I like to use, so back up.
Yeah.
All this energy was coursing through me, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, we are energetic beings. There are some people that see auras. I do not see auras, but I can sense the energy. I'm not sure what sense it is, but I can see where things need to be altered. And that's true in stationary things, in geography, and it's also true in people. So if I see someone and I can tell pretty much where they need a little bit of a lift.
Yeah.
And so how do I do that? I use my own energy system that through all the stuff I've gone through has gotten pretty clear. Mm-hmm. So, as I think I told you in one of our breaks, I get up at 3:30 in the morning so I can begin my meditation at 4. And so I go to bed early.
Yes.
Yeah. So those of us that do energy work have to have a pretty clean slate on the inside. So we mostly are vegetarian, and we meditate a lot and all that kind of stuff that most folks aren't interested in doing. But the energy that courses through each of us is the same energy that is God energy. So there is no separation between any of us from each other, or from he, she, God, So we really are all one. And if you understand that and allow for the differences that manifest within each of us on Earth, then life becomes entirely different.
Okay.
And so yes, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so basically you had the manifest learning with all the becoming a doctor, and then the spirit learning of the energy and how that works after your death experience. But what does that do in terms of getting us through the day when we come across, challenges and people who are difficult or life experiences that are way beyond our ability to control in terms of, the social stuff all across the planet? How do we deal with that? You got insight in some of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. We tend to classify things as either good or bad, and which I would call just hyper-profiling. And so we look at some of the politics that are going on, or war, or starvation, or any of these things, and we say, this is evil. Mm-hmm. Well, it really is not evil. How can it be if there's only one God, and the God is paying attention, and we are all one soul? But it is a sort of a spectrum where bad eventually goes to good. We cannot have good without bad. This is a dualistic system. Once God manifested as two things instead of one, then there had to be duality or opposites all the way down to our level where we experience it on Earth. So we have all these opposites within us. We're hot, we're cold, we're male, we're female, we're healthy, we're sick. And it seems like everything is disjointed and chaotic. Now, I'm getting to your answer fairly soon here. The main thing that I think understanding metaphysics will help you with is first of all, it's all ordered. That this system is incredibly complicated. You think our computer technology is complicated. God technology is 100 million times more complex. And so it gives us the impression that we are all separate and that bad is bad and good is good and that there's no real connection between them. So if you understand that all of this is a transitory sort of script that we are given in order to grow closer to the divine, then all of it starts making sense. And so then we have to go back. Do we have time to another few minutes to go into this?
I got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. What we all have are weaknesses or character defects. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of daily life, this is the way we get to the beautiful land and far, far beyond, because there are many dimensions beyond what the one I experienced and talked about. There are at least 8. Some people are talking about 13 these days. I don't know. I've never seen those. But the way that we get there is through the very things that we have learned from all the saints and sages in history. We have to live through our higher self. We have to develop all of the things that elevate us above the so-called evil. The 7 deadly sins are things that we are born with. We are born with lust, anger, greed, hatred, selfishness, pride, jealousy. All those things are part of our infrastructure. So we are given a daily experience on this earth so that we can transcend all of those. We do not eliminate and erase them. We have them. So what we learn to do through our daily experience by being charitable, by being selfless, by developing compassion, by showing love for others, for having patience, for not profiling and judging, and for surrendering. This is the way that we get to the beautiful land.
See, this isn't fair because you've already been there.
Yeah. Yeah, but, I still experience occasional impatience, particularly on I-40.
Okay, yeah, that traffic thing. Okay, I have to wrap up, but I want to say the other book that goes along with this that he has not yet released goes into some of this metaphysical aspect and some of the other things, the other dimensions that he's mentioning right now. And Dr. House, Between Now and When is a really good start, and I had no idea. I just heard somebody, mention Meyer Baba in passing and had no idea. I thought, well, that's like Yogananda. No, it's a different element. But it is an ascended master, someone who has a few pointers to share. And so I wanted to also mention that because you had that aspect on your side in terms of muddling through this and trying to find your way when things appeared very confusing. So that, I think, it's a wonderful aspect of your story.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad you brought that up. And when we open our heart, great things happen, and ascended masters can reach down and help us towards the goal.
We're going to have to leave. Thank you so much. Richard House, MD. He's got the book Between Now and When. You can Google it, find it. It's available. And How My Death Made My Life Worth Living. And an incredible story, an incredible transcendence to be able to get a view of all that else that's out there, And it's here. It's not there, I guess. It's here. It's inside. Thank you, Dr. House.
Wendy, thanks for having me.
All right. Remember, check the website, wendyscoffeehouse.com, because I've got the background and things like that posted there. So I'll give you a few links and details to check out. And don't forget, there are some other great interviews and some backstories on those, too. So just feel free to wander around, wendyscoffeehouse.com. Get a cup of coffee, tea, whatever, high C. Till next time, stay curious. You got a whole lot to go here. A lot of things to check out. Curiosity will take you there. See ya.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.